every case, there's the notion that banks are too big to not be supported, and if they are not supported, they will fall and crash the economy even more so than they've been shown to do.
Wall Street's not that complicated. And it is made to seem complicated to anybody who's not on Wall Street, because creating complexity when it doesn't need to be there is a way of basically retaining power.
So the first book I wrote after I left Goldman, Other People's Money, was very much looking at the Enron crisis at the time and WorldCom and the scandals and the role of banks and some history that led to those occurrences. And then the last book I wrote, It Takes a Pillage, I specifically looked at the bailout. And I realized there's just more to it than this. Into the crash in 1929, there was alliances, but it was sort of like, we'll do our thing, you do your thing. We're not really on the same team in terms of the American economic stability overall, and we had a tremendous crash. 5 of the 6 biggest banks in the world are out of the United States.
I did not know that. Amazing.
Our biggest banks are bigger. The rest of the European banks are smaller. There have been times in our past, for example, going into the crash in 1929, where there was very strong relationships, for example, between the Morgan Bank, which is now J.P. Morgan Chase, and a slew of presidents, from Hoover to Coolidge to Hoover. They wanted economic stability throughout the country. They actually thought it was important for confidence in the banking system, for economic foundations to be sound, so that A, they could grow their banks, B, they could grow them internationally, which was something Washington wanted to do in this sort of new growing world. But also people would actually keep their money there and trust that they had a future with this bank. So the relationships with individuals and corporations and countries all mattered. We're at a point now in history where all of what has happened has culminated in a period where the banks are able to take larger risks. They're bigger than they were before. They control more assets as a percentage of total U.S. assets, more deposits as a percentage of U.S. deposits, more derivatives, which have come into the play to make this just more complicated and more risky. And they have done so with impunity. Central Bank, the ECB in Europe, People's Bank of China is sort of getting involved with this idea of keeping money so cheap and rates so low or negative. So it's this global subsidization of these sort of criminal institutions. And the banks, particularly the US banks, have seen their cash pools increase by 400%. They've benefited big time.
How do we stabilize our control over how money gets used in this country so that it doesn't get used for purposes that don't benefit the country or the state or the local areas or individuals? So with that, I am going to thank you.